Happy weekend, everybody. It's almost agreement time. So, we're almost agreement at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to our website, almostagreement.com. Look for the soon-to-be coming Voter Guide 23. We've got a few more announcements for those. You need to figure out the deadline. We need to figure out the deadline for what's going on with that. So, yeah, we'll look up that stuff and talk about that, among other things. Joe Biden got caught with confidential documents in his office, so we'll see how that turns out. Cracks me up. It's just perfect. It's just perfect. Anyway, Almost Agreement, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to your favorite podcast writer. Give us a like and follow and whatever their podcasting you could do. And then tell your friends about us. Like, word of mouth is where it's at. So we're going to do what we do, and we're going to do a show. So there it goes. Simma, what's happening?
Hey.
What's going on, buddy?
What up?
No, it's a showtime thingy.
It is.
We're doing.
It's a Friday.
It is Friday. For us, for you guys listening, it's Saturday, but whatever. I don't know. What's new? Where do you want to start? There's so many things going on.
What we got new?
To me, for what I like to try to figure out and pay attention to and suck at, is the 113th Assembly of the State of Tennessee House of Representatives has convened this week. Got together. We got some appointments to some different, official appointments to different subcommittees and blah, 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 blah. All that's rolling. And the first couple hundred bills has started to roll in their filing process.
Yeah, the few I looked at, it said, I guess they were put on whatever, I guess at the end of the legislative sessions. It's like some of them were just rolling over from last year.
There are some, because remember, if they don't vote on it, it just stays. I don't remember. It's still weird, that process thing. Because, we're starting at 1. And so this year, number 1, and we'll come back to what number 1 is, but number 1 is the first one filed, it was officially filed in November of 22.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Which is nothing. It's just you file the paperwork.
That's what I was saying. It was just the end of their session last year.
Well, it's not, because, the session ends in May.
Oh, okay, never mind.
And technically, unless a special session is called either by the Speaker or the Governor, they're not obligated to do anything. Now, they can do stuff.
So how do they file it in November?
Well, because the offices are still open per se. Not their offices, but the State House of Representatives office is still active. And so paperwork goes and comes and whatever. Because I was just thinking about that. What happens if, you're Eddie Manis, and I don't know, mid-October you file a bill? And maybe there's a line somewhere in there that I don't know about. Maybe that's what it is. Because Eddie Manis had already announced he wasn't running again, but he still technically held the seat until sometime in December, I guess, when the official changeover to Elaine Davis goes down.
I would think there's some kind of caveat in there that maybe if you were the only person on the bill, which is probably going to be super rare anyway, but you would probably have a co-sponsor. That then your co-sponsor, if you weren't in the next session, your co-sponsor could
can't file a bill, or if you file a bill and are not in the session where that bill will be looked at, the bill falls off or something. I don't know. Yeah. It would make sense.
It don't necessarily fall off. It may just fall to
right. Well, if it
that
doesn't
other
have
name,
right, if there's
just
not
that other name, your
right.
name would drop off that bill.
But if there's not a name attached, or if the other name that's attached doesn't get reelected, or something like that,
maybe.
And so there's a couple in action that are quite curious. My Facebook is broken on my computer, and I don't know why or how to fix it. So let me pull up my Facebook on my phone, because this one I was chatting with other groups. House Bill 85. I did not send that on the list of show prep. House Bill 85, Controlled Substances, as introduced, enacts the Free All Cannabis for Tennessee Act, establishes a regulatory structure for the cultivation, processing, and retail sale of marijuana and marijuana products in the state to be administered by the Department of Agriculture.
I think he's put this up every year.
Yeah, it's Mr. Freeman from Nashville, so he's a Democrat, which means nothing he does will get pissed. But right now, that's all that it is. Apparently, they also have, for the House side, they've, last session, I guess they passed some sort of transparency thing. Jesse and Scott were talking about it today on their show, and you can sign up for it. You got to sign up for it. It's no cost or anything. You just got to sign up for it, and it's a much I guess they're saying like when these amendments come on, it's actually clear because like when they come onto the website, it's not as clear what's going on. Like especially like the one we were arguing about last year. Was it 1680 or whatever it was? 1865? Was that what it was?
No, I don't remember.
Whatever it was, that one, like the hemp law one last year that we were trying to figure out, where the caption on it was like real simple, like, oh, we're going to change the date of the filings required by this department from this date to this date. But by the time it actually got into subcommittee and stuff, it was a full ban on anything hemp or THC related in the state. So anyway, for the potheads out there, House Bill 85. So if you're in Knoxville, don't bother with Gloria. She's already on board. Don't bother with Sam McKenzie. He's already on board. But if you're in Knoxville, you got to hit up your Elaine Davises, your Zacharys, your Laffertys. Your Carringer. Is it Carringer up in Halls?
I think so.
Yeah. Start hitting them up. Tell them you want your legal weed in the state.
Yeah, I saw something about the hemp commission that... what's her name started last year? That got reapproved, I guess.
Or Massey, excuse me.
Massey, yeah. That got reapproved, I guess, for continued funding this year or whatever.
Yeah, and it's a weird spot. Like, I get where Becky's coming from with what she's trying to do, because really, like, the main thing Becky's trying to do is, like, so if you've got whatever, something that, like, like leukemias or something like that, where, like, as far as the comfort of your life, it is significantly better with weed and in states that had medical, not the generic, oh, my back hurts, give me the weed card. Right. Like actual, like you have a cancer or something like that. So what Massey's trying to do is get that so if you can go to Virginia, Indiana, I don't know what the closest legal state is, medical state. But basically what she's trying to do is that you can't buy or sell it in the state. You can't do any of that kind of stuff here. You can't grow any more than you can already currently grow under current law. But you can go to Indiana. Let's just stick with Indiana. Or Illinois, because Illinois is definitely a legal state.
All right.
You can go there. You can go to the dispensary with your prescription from your doctor and pick up and come back in the state. And if you are detained for whatever reason with that, but you have the prescription from your doctor kind of thing and all that kind of stuff lined up with it, it's not criminal anymore. So it takes the possession away. If you have a prescription, you won't get a possession charge anymore.
Right.
And you get to keep your shit. They don't confiscate.
Which there's like other parts of it where they were actually trying to look at if Tennessee ever went medicinal. Right. As to,
I know there's a study or whatever that was part of her thing that they're trying to get a study or some data collection. It's just dumb at this point. Come on now. We don't need some investigative group.
I think if anything, that would help lend validity to.
But it's like
changing the laws.
I mean, hey, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like, well, how about instead of spending like the city of Knoxville just signed off on like $150,000 expense to hire a company to write a grant. So it's $125,000 or $150,000 to get $25 million from the federal government if their grant's good enough, if the grant writing's good enough. So it's like, hiring a company to write the paperwork to show the study for the thing that you need when we have it already in the weed department. You can look at Colorado or in Illinois or some of these other states and be like, look, this is what happened. You don't need a specific study for it. Now, I think there are some caveats.
You need to pay a company that much money to write a grant.
Well, you do if you're the city of Knoxville, apparently.
We've got a major university here with people that write grant proposals.
Hey, we'll get into that in a minute. I got a whole bunch of city stuff to talk about, so we'll talk about that here in a second. I'm just saying that is not uncommon practice for governments, but I think it's kind of ridiculous. I'm agreeing with you in the sense of I think it's kind of dumb when there's evidence already out there. We don't need to put together a commission to do a study to figure out what would happen if. We already have examples. And or at least if we're going to do some sort of thing like that, it should be a very small one because it should be go out, talk to Colorado legislators about how it happened, how it worked, what things they would change if they could or whatever. You don't need to go do like a, down to earth, like how many acres would we grow in this state and how many more people would be in or out of jail. It's all kind of a no duh at this point to me. So anyway, 85 for all you potheads out there. And I realized something. I don't want it for business purposes. Philosophically, yes, I would like legal weed in the state of Tennessee. For professional purposes, that would be very damaging to my bottom line. the more I've thought about it, it would do a lot of harm to me. But the philosophy is there. So House Bill 1, that's the big one, the number one. We've talked about it a little bit on the show already in previous episodes. It's basically the fantastic hypocrisy of the Republicans in the state of Tennessee right now, who are, you parents are smart enough to choose where your kids should go to school. You parents, it's your choice. Parents' rights, parents' choice. Except when it comes to health care for your kid. Then you're not smart enough anymore. We're going to do it for you. That's what House Bill 1 is. I don't know how else to interpret it. Yeah. So, and it's going to pass. Sorry, people. It's going to pass. If you have a trans youth who's wanting to actually transition and you want to go, and as a parent you want to support them, you got to take them to another state to get it done. Because your parents' choice Republicans don't agree in your decision as a parent on that one. And so there will be no affirmative, gender-affirming care, including hormones, including medications, and surgery.
Well, there were a couple of weird caveats that I read on it that sounded kind of goofy. I was reading the summary, I guess, itself.
Yeah, I mean, the summary on the website, Public Health, the Public Health Committee, or category, as introduced, prohibits a healthcare provider from performing on a minor or administering to a minor a medical procedure if the performance or administration of the procedure is for the purpose of enabling a minor to identify with or live as a purported identity inconsistent with the minor's sex. Again, anything, I'm not a big fan of the gender-affirming care. I'm not a big fan of the phrasing. I get it. It makes sense, I guess, but it's anything. I don't know. It seems. I don't. Again, I don't care if that makes you happy. Great. If your parents are cool with it, go right ahead. I think for kids, for minors, I think it'd be inappropriate if a kid can do it without. Kid can just go do it. I think that's fair. Maybe is a better way to put it. I certainly 100% agree that there will be plenty of parents out there who refuse to let their kids go through this process, even though this kid is 100% sure that this is what this kid wants to do. I wanted to smoke when I was 16. I did it anyway. But my parents didn't affirm that, but I continued to do it anyway.
Right.
It's not an apples to apples, as you like to say, but the idea being, I don't know. That's to me where I draw the line. It's I'm okay with it being, with parents being required to be part of the conversation. I'm not okay with a minor being able to do it without parental consent. Which this doesn't involve that at all. This just says a kid can't do it, period.
Right.
And there's talk of there's some states apparently that are doing some where it's 18 or 21.
This is all just banning any kind of healthcare provider from doing it. I don't think there's any kind of repercussion for parents or anything like that. It just basically cuts it off at the healthcare that.
I don't know.
So anywhere from psychologists to endocrinologists and.
Right, but you're not going to get any of these medications or hormone treatments or anything like that without a healthcare professional,
right,
or provider,
right,
in state at least. So there's another way to look at it. You want to go further, right?
It's not going so far as I guess Texas's bill that basically
makes it criminal for the parent.
Yeah, where the state could go after the parent,
right.
essentially send
it's
DCS
automatic, right?
on them.
It's automatic in Texas if you do anything like that. That DCS it starts a file for you in DCS. In Texas.
Yeah, I think they can start an investigation. I don't know
if
if it's automatic.
I thought it was automatic, but anyway, same idea. Yeah, which I think is ridiculous as well. But I was just thinking about it. If you want to go further right than the Republicans in the state of Tennessee for the argument, just be you're costing jobs. Make that your argument against this. Right. If you pass this bill, people will lose their jobs. And that is a true statement.
But we're saving lives.
Are you?
In God's eyes.
You're a Republican. You're supposed to be small government. You're supposed to be personal choice. You're supposed to be this, that, and the other. Personal responsibility. You're supposed to be pro-business. Well, you're costing businesses money. You're costing people their jobs. That is not a Republican thing to do. So, I guess there's the line of attack for me is it's none of your fucking business. That's my number 1A line of attack. But if you really want to get into a philosophical argument with the Republican and be further to the right than they are in the conversation, make it about jobs. By passing this bill, you're going to cost people their jobs. Good, high-paying jobs, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, if that's how you feel is I mean, because you're not going to, I guess you're not going to get a Zachary. Is it Zachary here in Knoxville?
Yeah.
You're not going to get a Zachary here in Knoxville to come off it on the wokest bullshittery. You're not going to get him to back off of it on any of the culture wars part of the conversation. That one's set in stone. It's my God tells me this is not okay, so I'm putting this in play or whatever. Whatever the rationale that the Republicans that are pushing this have put together in their faith or whatever the fuck it is, they're not budging off of that one. So if you're going to win the argument with them and convince anybody to change anything, you've got to go at it from something other than what should be the easy argument if it's none of your fucking business. Yeah. Which is still, you're still to the right of a Republican by saying this is none of your business and them saying yes it is. But the reality is that one they're not coming off of. So you've got to figure out how to argue it in a different way than just it's none of your business. Let me do what I want to do with my life. Because that is a Republican ideal. At least they say it is. But not this one. Because again, the hypocrisy drives me fucking crazy. To repeat myself, not that it matters. Both sides do it because Gloria's guilty of the opposite. But the idea that they're out there running their mouths about parents' choice, parents' rights. They've got Christie's putting up the Parents' Bill of Rights for the Knox County schools.
Huh?
She's creating, I think it's Christie. I apologize. It might be incorrect. Might be Suzanne Horn. Anyway, they're creating a Parents' Bill of Rights for Knox County schools so that it's clear what you as a parent are allowed to do, which is not a bad idea in the grand scheme of things, but it's really part of this whole, parents' rights, what you're allowed to do as a parent and what you should be able to do and how much involvement you should have in your kids and not kids' school and education, blah, 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 blah. It's like, but this is the party in the state of Tennessee that is parents' rights, parents' choice. Except for this one. And it's like, well, balance this out for me. Make it make sense why your decision is better on this one, but everything else you want it to be my decision as the parent. So that's that one. Then on to number 3. I skipped number 2 because I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't anything exciting to me yet. House Bill number 3 is criminal offenses as introduced expands the offenses of an assault against the first responder or nurse and aggravated assault against a first responder or nurse to apply to assaults committed against all healthcare professionals. Let me let you guess how I feel about this one.
You don't like it.
Why not?
Because you don't think they're special.
I think you know me too well. You know me too well. I don't. That is an affront to people that don't have a certain job. I've chosen to do this. I've chosen to do this profession with my life, and I'm less special or I'm less important. My life is less valuable. My physical safety is less valuable to the community at large than this person just because of my job choice.
I mean, do you want heightened criminal?
I don't care what it is. It should be the same. If Billy at the nurse's station or Billy behind the counter at the Weigel's or Billy in the grocery store gets punched in the face, it's assault. Period. I don't care what version it is. I don't care what level. It's just it doesn't matter to me. What you do for a living shouldn't change the penalty involved for what happened to you, for the person who did the thing to you. It doesn't make sense. Other than we are legally acknowledging that certain professions are special and they're more important. Which I think, if anything, we learned in the pandemic is that most of that's fucking bullshit.
It's only when they're in the course of doing their job. Like if you assaulted a firefighter when he's not in the course of his duty, I don't think it's an extended thing. It's only when they're in the act of doing their profession, I'm pretty sure. Like if you shot a doctor outside of his house, I don't think you get...
I'm glad you added pretty sure, because I'm not so sure on that point of it. It's not clear in this. It's not clear in the caption here.
So I looked at the summary. I mean, it went all the way down to like TWR agents.
I would hope that is the case to make some sense of this thing. But whether it is or isn't doesn't matter to me.
All right.
Because, again, if...
You are free to your opinion. That's fine.
I'm just saying, if you're...
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving on. We're done with that one. This is going to be a short episode. House Bill 9 was the next one on my list of things to chat about. Oh, yeah, this is the
Cabaret.
anti-drag one. I mean, we've already heard about it here, too. It's obscenity and pornography, as introduced, creates an offense for a person who engages in adult cabaret performance on public property or in a location where the adult cabaret performance could be viewed by a person who's not an adult. And so the problem with this one is that the implication is, and I was a little bit guilty of this in conversation in previous weeks, the implication is that by being in drag, it is automatically sexual. And I rescind my prior stance on that. I think mine was a little bit, I was an oversimplified look at least. Most of the drag stuff that I've seen in my life is very sexual. But it is not obligated in the course of the art form, for lack of a better word, that it be sexual. So essentially,
most of the drag stuff I've seen, it's long dresses or suits.
Right, and essentially
It's
this one
not-
will be if the Republicans get what they want out of this one, is that if a dude walks down the street in a dress, he will be cited for whatever this is, whatever the penalty is that goes along with it.
No. What are you talking about? It's not talking about in public. Did you read this?
Yeah, or in a location where the adult cabaret performance could be viewed by a person who is not an adult. I would say,
Okay, cabaret performance. I think this only has to do with
you're right.
that engages in a performance. It's not a guy walking down the street.
Okay,
Unless you think that they can clarify that someone walking down the street is doing a performance.
right, because the definition that they're working with is that by being in clothes that are not gender specific to your actual gender, you're putting on a performance as a different thing. I think that would be the argument that they would try to push on that. They don't want drag, period.
So you think this could get someone walking down the street in drag arrested?
I think no, I don't think it. I don't know. We'd have to see what DA it goes under and all the sorts of bullshit like that. If it's in Nashville, no. But if it's in Anderson County, maybe.
I don't think that's what this is aimed at, but you could be right.
I agree. It's going after like the drag library readings and all ages drag shows, like the whole Christmas debacle we had here. That's really what the target is. But they're certainly not going to miss a chance to fuck with the drag community on the side. Because the reality,
they can't outlaw you from walking down the street wearing whatever you want.
As
As long as you're not showing public nudity, I don't think there is any kind of offense.
if they can argue that by wearing clothes that are not for the gender that you are, is you performing, whether it's it doesn't have to be a paid performance. If I go and busk, am I performing?
Yes,
I'm standing on a sidewalk performing a thing.
correct. Yes, you are performing.
Okay. So there again, I'm not saying it's not a straightforward argument, but I think it's an argument that would be attempted. I would be comfortable saying that.
I think that's crazy.
I think the idea of this whole thing is crazy, but
I agree with that as well, but I don't think this would allow any kind of law enforcement or district attorney's office to go after someone for walking down the street.
I will start wearing
Not
a dress and see what happens once this passes.
Okay, you're not going to get arrested.
We'll see. I'm curious. I think that there's an implied threat in this for that.
Why do you think that?
Because I think that the whole point of this is to go out to demonize the drag community, and that's what they're after.
You said they're going after the performances. This is exactly what this is aimed at.
Agreed. I mean, I agree that is specifically what it is, but I still think that they would expand it when they could, where they can. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I still think like as prior, mind your fucking business. It's not that big a fucking deal. I don't know what everybody's getting all bent out of shape about. House Bill 10 is next on my list. Abortion, as introduced, specifies that the offense of criminal abortion does not include an abortion that was necessary due to a medical emergency affecting the physical or mental health of the pregnant person or performed on a patient whose pregnancy was a result of rape, incest. So basically this is cutting in the loophole that everybody's talking about, or everybody wants. This is introduced by Chattanooga Democrat Mr. Yosef Hakeem. So
I did see something interesting. I want to say, like,
it's a bill from a Democrat in the state of Tennessee, so it's probably going to fail. Anyway, continue.
want to say the FDA or some kind of high-ranking like medical association came out and reclassified what most people call the Plan B pill, basically, and reclassified it as it not being an actual abortion drug, because that's not what it does. It just prevents fertilization. It doesn't actually cause a fertilized egg to be aborted. So I guess they re-looked at it and were able to reclassify it. So I think they were trying to work on a way for Plan B to still be available in states that abortion was illegal, because it's not technically an abortion drug. Everyone just assumed it kind of was, and it was just kind of lumped into it.
That's the generic phrase for it.
But technically and medically, it does not actually cause an abortion. It just prevents fertilization.
I find it interesting that they didn't classify it that way in the first place. I mean,
at the time, it was probably just lack of imagination. They're like, we don't need to classify this. Like,
right.
It just kind of gets lumped into.
They never saw Roe v. Wade being.
Well, I mean, Viagra was like a blood pressure drug. It just had a side effect that it'd give you a hard on for hours too.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it just got marketed for something else. But it was marketed originally and probably approved by as like a blood thinner or whatever.
Right. I'm just saying, but yeah. Anyway, I'd be curious what the original intent was, if that's the scenario that was at play for this one.
I'm sure it just kind of got lumped into
but I mean, I'd say
general group of drugs that contain a certain chemical.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know, like it's marketed. It's definitely marketed as such. You wouldn't name it Plan B if it wasn't for, oops, I forgot Plan A, which was the stop it before it happens. This is the stop it after it happened. But again, it's a marketing thing. You're right.
Well, I don't think it's actually marketed as a Plan B. It just somehow everyone just started calling it Plan B.
I mean, that's what's on the box.
Don't think so.
Apparently, it's a Plan B one step.
Okay. I guess there is a brand.
Yep. Right there. So, yeah, did you see the store?
That makes it to me. I should have assumed some business would have been like, oh, no one else has claimed that? Well, fine. We'll call it that.
A promise is a trust not to be broken.
Up. Sorry, I'm checking hockey scores, and ESPN's ruining my night. So I'm going to close that whole tab, not even look at it anymore. Ruining my Pens are losing. House Bill 15 was the next on my list that I want to look at. Criminal offense as introduced increases the penalty for aggravated assault involving strangulation or attempted strangulation from a C to a B felony if the victim was pregnant at the time. So I mean that's continued. I mean that's continued on the right to life.
Pregnant people aren't special though.
I mean that's continued on the right to life thing. That's basically they're. I mean I'll give them kudos for being consistent, because it is something that if you're going to play the game, if you're going to play the game of that, it's a life on conception. If you kill a pregnant woman, you killed two people.
Well, this isn't killing. This is just assault, right? Assault or strangulation.
Well, but still, the same thing as yours. By assaulting the mom, you're assaulting both.
Yeah.
And so, at least it's logically congruent to me,
right?
Which doesn't give me the same exception as of our prior conversation.
Yeah, I mean you're cutting off blood flow, so I mean you're inhibiting
right oxygen
the fetus as well,
right. The fetus as well. So again, it's a follow through. If you're going to agree with Part A, then this is a logical follow through. But since I don't agree with Part A, I guess I do have to be offended by this one. I don't know. I mean,
we'll see what happens.
I think it's appropriate if you're going to be consistent, I suppose, and so I'll give them kudos for being consistent on that one. But yeah, there's already like 293 or 193 bills been introduced. Apparently, they have like a month. And mid-February is the cutoff. If it's not filed by mid-February or something like that, it will not be talked. It will not be discussed this year. And so, in the next couple of weeks, we'll start seeing all those place filler ones, the ones that piss me off, like we had last year. But hopefully, I can get signed up with this Speaker Sexton's Transparency Club, and actually get to be able to follow him a little bit better than I have in the past. Apparently, like Jesse and Scott were saying, like if you go to Nashville as a reporter and go sit in on like a subcommittee, because like so, what Jesse and Scott were explaining, and which we learned last year in the process, was that so we had that House Bill 1865 or whatever introduced as changing the date of something from the Department of Agriculture. But then when it hits subcommittee, the amendments start rolling in, and the amendments are what turns it into what's actually at the end, which may or may not have anything to really do with the original. Although it needs to be somewhere in the logical, hemp and CBD and marijuana and all that stuff is going to be regulated by the Department of Agriculture. So it's something it's filed under that subheading, and as long as the amendments keep the totality of the bill logically still in that subheading, the amendments can go crazy, which is exactly what they did with the one we were talking about last year. And so this new thing from Speaker Sexton's office or whatever is supposed to make it easier to follow those amendments. Because Jesse was saying you could go to Nashville, you could go into, as the press, a subcommittee hearing, and maybe whomever introduced that to the subcommittee, who's bringing amendments, maybe they bring copies of the amendments for everybody in the subcommittee. Maybe. They may only bring a couple of copies and everybody has to share. But certainly nobody in the crowd, none of the press that's there or the audience or anybody else gets a copy of it. It's not public record until after the fact.
Right.
And so when you're trying to follow these different things, it's like, well, that amendment has to be filed and have a not a physical, but have a digital copy on file before the hearing so that other members and the public can see it before that hearing, which I think is appropriate. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So take somewhere we can get them, I guess.
True that.
Did you find any in your perusing that you thought was interesting?
Oh, no, I just looked up those few of the numbers that you had listed off.
Gotcha. Those are the ones that just popped out to me, kind of going through them. I mean,
because it's weird trying to search because you put in those numbers and I think it'll still show you those same numbers of previous years.
Yeah. It's not. Gloria came in here. She's like, no, it's real easy. It's like, no, it's not, woman. It is not easy to navigate that thing and keep up with something.
I wish they'd have like a date thing where you could look at, the most recently filed bills and kind of go down from there. It will still show you a shit ton, but you would at least see what was the most newest things that have popped
maybe
up.
As, I don't know, I mean, when I've been doing these right here, like my first run at HB3.
I think you have to make an account, and I'm not sure if it's open to the public, but you've got that thing where it says My Bills, where you can have it flag certain bills, and I guess it'll keep track of the ones that you're following.
Yeah.
If you turn on your notifications or whatever.
Yeah, which I mean, I'm going to do the Speaker Sexton thing. I got to figure that out here. After Scott and Jesse were talking about it, but
speaking of transparency, I was reading a story about it was some kind of law firm, maybe out of Nashville, that was suing the governor and his administration about open records laws. It had something
I saw some
to do
headlines.
with. I think it was like money that was spent. No, it was like their COVID plan going back. But apparently, I guess Lee, whenever he originally ran on it being open government, being transparent.
Right. I saw some stuff about like
they're like, all right, well, tell us how you were making decisions while the pandemic was going on or whatever.
Yeah, I saw some headline. There was some sort of.
We don't want to tell you about that.
Some sort of like Governor Lee uses a strange loophole to stop transparency on certain topic or whatever. Yeah. Okay, I'm curious.
We were talking about secret stuff a couple episodes ago or whatever. There's a good bit that you can. It's not an easy thing to do, but you can put in a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information.
Yeah.
And get a good bit of stuff if you get it to the right people in the right department and fill it out correctly.
Yeah.
Until you get into things that are sensitive or whatever, but there's a good bit of information out there that you can request if you want it.
Now I got to figure out I should have asked Scott and Jesse why I had him earlier today. The process of it, because theoretically, a governor does not introduce bills, right? And so Governor Lee could have an agenda, could have some things that he wants to do.
Executive orders, pretty much his version of that.
No.
Not really.
I mean, they can do some executive orders. There are some places where those are appropriate, ever. But if he wants to put something into law, essentially what he does is he writes a bill and he hands it to a senator and a representative and says, "Here, put this on the floor."
Uh-huh.
I'm assuming, like, somewhere that's the general process. But one of the things on his agenda this year, which I find interesting, not sure, haven't put it's very early in the stages of discovery on it for me, as well as for anybody for that matter. Apparently, it's something that they're doing in Texas, around Dallas. It is a semi-toll road program, and so it would be like, the busiest parts of 40. So, like, if you were coming out of downtown, going west on 40, that stretch between Alcoa Highway and paper mill that gets backed up real bad.
Yeah.
Essentially what it is they will contract a company, not contract company, they will give permission for a company to go in there and build another lane. And on that new lane would be a toll lane. And you either sign up for the service and pay the toll, however they do it.
You're like one of those fast pass boxes.
I guess. And or there's got to be some sort of, because it's not like, God, I'm trying to think of where it was that's done this that I've been to recently. Atlanta has it, where they have like the expressway that's like in the morning rush hour it's going into town, and the evening rush hour it's coming out of town. Like it's a separate interstate.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it threw me off.
That goes one way or the other. It's not like that. It's literally just an additional lane. So if you're driving, you could just hop over there. And
right, but it's only for those people that have paid for that special
right. And so there's got to be a way that they can keep up with. There's got to be a way that they can bill people that aren't supposed to be there, or something. There's got to be a way, because it cannot be left up to the police to ticket people that way. It's not going to work.
I think that's the only way they're going to be able to do it.
Either way, it doesn't matter. Or there'll be
how
some
do you charge someone that doesn't have that box?
Well, I mean, like my Florida story, the Florida toll road is they take a picture of your license plate and they bill it to you. And maybe if you sign up for the service that do the same thing, it's just it bills you a better rate if you're signed up, if you're not, or whatever. Anyway, they're talking about putting this in play here in Tennessee. And so what's interesting about it, which makes it kind of not a bad idea to me, is that essentially the entire road, for the purposes of construction, will be on that contractor. So if I'm a developer I'm a road building company, and I go and say, hey, I want to build this toll road addition from Alcoa Highway all the way down to Watt Road. Like, that's my plan, right? And I present the plan and it gets approved or whatever. I am obligated to, when I'm doing the work, to do that whole stretch. All lanes, not just my one. And I do that out of pocket. And I get paid back by the tolls I get off of my special lane. And it would be, the state would own the road, the interstates, I don't know exactly how that works out with the federal government and all that kind of shit, but in the interstate or whatever, at the end of the day, the state at large, whether it's federal or state of Tennessee, would still maintain ownership of the road, but the maintenance through the terms of the contract would fall onto this third-party company. And so continued upkeep would be on them on X, Y, and Z, and then they make their money through there, and then at the end of term, whether there's an option for them to renew term or end it there, that just becomes an extra lane. Or they subcontract the work out to another company who wants to do it or something like that. And so I'm curious about it. Apparently it's going on in Texas right now. Dallas has this in play. Apparently pretty freaking ridiculous expensive, because it's like it uses the Uber model essentially. Like if you're trying to
demand, basically,
right. As demand increases, the cost per mile to drive on that goes up.
Like, oh fuck, is there a Cowboys game today? I can't go downtown.
Right,
I can't afford it.
Well, you can. You just can't use the special lane.
Oh, that's right.
You just have to stay in the regular traffic.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that they make it more expensive. Less people use it, so it keeps moving faster. So people that are using it get to move it, but they have to pay to go faster through town. I mean, again, like, it checks a lot of boxes and makes sense to me. I don't know. I'll have to see some more about it as it comes out, but it's interesting. I think it's an interesting, creative solution to a fairly continual problem. Now, it disproportionately helps the wealthy, I guess, would be one of the arguments. It'll disproportionately affect, actually not really, it actually disproportionately affects negatively the wealthy, because they're the ones paying for total road upkeep, where we're not paying more in taxes to keep this road up. That's falling on the people that want to pay extra. So it'd be an additional tax on the higher income people for the service, but the rest of us would have better roads in theory because of it. Maybe. I mean, again, I don't know what the terms are. There's probably all sorts of fine print and what the upkeep requirements are, and I'm sure there's some shady shitbags that'll get in on this, and they'll fix their lane up real pretty, and the rest of the road will fall apart. And instead of like, hey, you got to fix that, I'm like, meh, we'll get to it.
We're getting our money.
Right. So, and it's perfectly corruptible like everything else is. So I don't, in theory, it makes sense to me. In practice, we'll see. I guess that's the point I'm trying to get to. I think it's interesting. I think it's something worth exploring. I'm sure Nashville will have to deal with it. But like Becky Massey's the transportation chair, so she's going to be a big part of this. And Scott said he talked to her about it. She said, I don't know where they're going to put another lane on 40.
That's what I was just trying to think.
There's some stretches where
the stretch you were talking about, I'm like, if you can't put it on the right side, because that's where 640 comes in. There's nothing really on the left side because you've got that emergency lane, concrete, thin concrete barrier, then the emergency lane for the oncoming traffic.
And Becky's answer was, you got to go up. Right, and especially right there, you'd have to be going over the 640 interchange because the 640 goes under and over right there.
Right.
So you'd have to either take the 640 eastbound and go under somehow with the 640 westbound that goes right through there, or go over both of them.
I keep seeing a lot of like logistics studies that have been done as far as like traffic goes, and it was if people didn't tailgate, we wouldn't have the traffic congestion that we do. But a lot of it comes down to that kind of bottlenecking of.
There was a great MythBusters on it. You ever see that one?
Mm-mm. Something where they did the pickup truck and the bed, the bed down or whatever.
No, they've done
the tailgate.
That was a good one too. No, this one they set up a course, and it was like a small oval course, and they had all of them, and they had some producers as well as, there was it Jamie and I forgot their names. Oh. Anyway, the two main guys, and then like the three like other main characters, and then they had like 5 producers, so they had like 8 or 10 cars on this small little track, and they drove in a circle, and for like one of them, I can't remember. Like they set it up, but basically it was like how much just one person in that group slowing down a little bit for just a second, just tap the brake. So like randomly in one of their test versions, one driver would tap the brake and go from 50 to 40, and then back up to 50 really quickly, but slow down that little bit, and how long it took for that whole circle to get back up to their cruising speed after that little interruption.
Right.
And, they ran a bunch of tests on it. It was really interesting. It was just as far as breaking down how much, it's like that whole thing when you get on the interstate and you're stuck in traffic forever, and then you finally get through the traffic and there was nothing.
Right.
And so basically like it's very possible that one person 4 miles ahead saw a squirrel or something and slowed down a little bit, and the person behind them's reaction to that, the person behind that's reaction,
right,
and that all kind of slinkied into, and then now we're trying to stretch the slinky back out,
right,
which goes to your tailgating thing, because that braking is going to be harder when you're closer to the person in front of you.
Yeah. That was even like stop and go traffic. Like I got pretty good about leaving a decent bit of space in front of me, and I didn't have to hit my brakes at all. I could just kind of keep cruising at a slow speed.
Man, when my cluster's so good, I could.
Trucks do that stuff all the time.
Yeah,
so they'll keep that consistent pace.
Yeah, and then it's assholes like me that jump in front of them because I need to get in the lane, and they're giving that space. It's like, dude, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I got to get in here because with how close this traffic is, I'm not going to get over. Otherwise, I'm going to get forced on this exit only, and that's not where I'm trying to be.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting solution. It's an interesting thing to look into. Becky wants to get her new Knoxville bypass back on the long-term agenda for the interstate system. Won't be something that we'll probably see for a decade.
Yeah.
But it would be like Lenore City around the northwest of Oak Ridge, and then way up in Anderson or Campbell County, or way up north 75 would be where it come back 75. I'd be curious if anybody's looking the other way. Because the problem to me is there's
the east side,
something that goes around the south.
So.
Like what's the one? Like there's the, like it does it like when you're in Foothills Mall right there. Like Foothills is Alcoa Highway, essentially. I don't know what's changed its names down there. Foothills Parkway.
Yeah, for 441 or whatever.
Yeah, but where the mall is right there, you could like there's the east-west road and there's the north-south road. So the north-south road's Alcoa Highway more or less, or yeah, and then the east before is 441 or whatever you're talking about, and it literally goes to 75 in Lenore City.
Yeah, and
so
it's John Sevier Highway.
No, John Sevier's further up. John Sevier's in Knox County.
Mar Alexander Parkway?
Yes, I think that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because I'd be curious when in all these studies how many. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a ton of north-south that's literally going Atlanta, up 75 to Lexington into the Ohios and stuff like that. But how many are going north, south, maybe Birmingham through Chattanooga up 75 and then cutting over to get to 81?
Right.
You know, and so, okay, yes, I 100% agree. If we did this bypass, there would be a lot of long haul truckers and stuff that are taking that to continue north on 75. But how many trucks are coming up 75, hitting 40, and either going across the mountains into Asheville or up through Johnson City, Bristol? I'd say that's a pretty good percentage. So I don't know how much relief a bypass that only does that would do.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, because at least all I've heard is just that one corner. It's not going, you know, Lenore City up to like Rocky Top and then back down in 407 exit or something like that. Like it's not doing a full arc around town. It's just doing that one quarter of a circle.
Because I think the Atlanta bypass has the main Interstate 75 that goes right through the middle. Then it's got, I think, two basically on either side of Atlanta. You've almost got like a big circle of a bypass around Atlanta.
We got two circles of bypass around Atlanta.
Those are two.
Yeah, because you have 75 and then it's 275, then you have 85 and 285, and then whatever the east-west one is that all come through downtown. But there's two different bypass circles. Like one more in town, one more out of town.
Okay.
Like Atlanta on an interstate map looks like a big target site.
That's what I was saying. I thought I had at least one around the circle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to fact check myself live on air because I'm not. When I said it confidently, I felt good about it. But now that I'm thinking about, it a little bit, I'm questioning myself.
Not too sure.
Not 100%. Hotlanta. Because you're right. So 285 is just the one.
Okay.
And 20 is the east-west. I stand corrected.
Is it called 285 on both sides of it?
Yeah.
Huh. That could
285.
get confusing.
285, 20. Well, I think it's interesting that 85, 75 cross in Atlanta instead of 75 hitting Atlanta and then continuing on the east side of the Rockies, or the Rockies, the Appalachians, and then 85 coming up from the west and then going, you see what I mean? They cross instead of going up and down. I always found that was just a weird little ism. But yeah, maps and shit for Atlanta people. But yeah, I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know if that's. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Because it would be like out here, and it would go like up to Andersonville through Clinton or some shit like that.
I think I've ever heard of Asbury. On the east side of Knoxville.
Cruise Farms Pizza Barn.
Yeah, I've never been out to the Cruise Farm.
R&L character. Where is that? Oh.
Yeah, where is that?
Yeah, I've never been down. Green Mountain Coffee Roasters is down there.
Johnson Fair Highway. Yeah, I guess I've driven down that. Just never knew that was an area. Asbury.
It's way down there, though. Fast Draw Plains. The historic Ramsey House. Marble Baptist Church. Pickle Island.
What?
Boop, 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 boom.
It's the airport.
There's archery right there at that Forks of the River.
We talked about that.
Yeah. Today's the last day. Hunting season is officially over.
Yeah.
0 kill year. Bummer. I don't know. Have you heard anything on Biden's records issues?
A little bit. They originally found him or his lawyers found him in an office.
Yep.
An office he had when he was, or after he left the vice presidency.
Right. It is gap year.
Yeah. And then they just found some yesterday, day before.
Oh, I didn't know they found more.
Yeah. They found 2, I think, at his house? Or no, some in his garage. Apparently he's making a point that it was locked up in the garage with his car. He's like, hey, the garage is locked. That's where my Corvette's at.
I mean, so first off, I'm not going to try to equate what Trump is doing and has done to this one or the Hillary Clinton one. Actually, the Hillary Clinton one I will a little bit, because Trump and Hillary were actively fighting against giving it back. Right? Like, it seems to, at least on the surface, it seems that the Biden ones was like shit that he took home while he was vice president or took out and did whatever, which, we can argue.
What did Hillary decline to give back?
Fuck. That's that whole server over house thing.
She sat down for hours.
Oh, wait,
deposition.
she destroyed a bunch of it before it got back. That's right. You're right. It was destroyed and not given back, but at least it's not available to anybody anymore. So I guess that's a win. Apologies, I misspoke. But it seems to be, so far at least, that the Biden stuff is just whatever. Like, I don't think it's appropriate by any means. If it's supposed to be classified stuff that's not supposed to leave the White House or supposed to leave your office as a senator or vice president or whatever it's supposed to be, it should not have. It shouldn't be going home with you,
right,
if that's the rule.
Right.
But it seems like everybody does that. So, that's a separate argument to make, I guess. Which, if the rule is you're not supposed to take it home, then don't fucking take it home. So that's simple. But, I don't think this Biden one and the Trump one are equal, because Trump was actively telling him he already gave it all back, or he doesn't have it, or when asked for it and they say, we know you have it, he's like, no, I don't, or I'll get it to you later. And like, there was a intent to not give it back from the Trump team, where at least it seems that the Biden one was like, shit, I didn't know I had it.
Yeah.
Here you go. Which, again, is still problematic to me, because I didn't know I had it means if somebody got in there and took it, who shouldn't have seen it, you didn't know it was missing.
Right.
Which is a different kind of bad than the Trump version of bad. So, again, I think Trump's probably going to get indicted for what he did. I don't think Biden will for what he did.
I mean, the Justice Department, they've already assigned a special counsel to
right,
it.
And that special counsel was a Trump appointee, as I've heard.
So, I mean, they're at least trying to do everything above board.
Right. And again, I'm not...
hey, we have another trove of classified documents.
Right. But I'm not going to fault the Justice Department for not going after Biden the same way they're going after Trump, because the actions that Trump did with the stuff is different than the actions that Biden did with his stuff.
Right.
Both are inappropriate.
Like, apparently they'd been trying to get stuff back from Trump before anything hit the public. So I think Jim Jordan was one that was like, he's like, they knew about this since, apparently, I guess the original lawyers found it back in November. Apparently, right before the elections. He was like, they didn't tell about the elections, but they told us about the Trump thing. The Trump thing started going back from January of that year. That never made public until the actual.
They're not the same thing.
It didn't get made public until the raid in was it June or July or whatever.
I agree with you, but it is kind of interesting that we're well past the election now, even though this event of discovery occurred well before.
Right.
I mean,
it's
hard not to jump to the conclusion of we're going to wait just a little bit before we tell everybody that we found this mistake we made. We're going to come out with it, just not yet.
Right.
It's hard not to.
I think
jump to that.
CBS was the first one to report it on Monday.
Right. So again, I don't think they're the same by any means, but I do think the bigger picture version of it, I think is more concerning to me than the specifics. One, it just for what has happened because of is part of why it's a problem. Because now we have, not that I'm agreeing with it, but now we have the pundit arguments of, see, they're treating him different than him because they don't like his party. And I mean, you could make the argument. I'm not making the argument, but I'm just, for the sake of this is what the problem occurs is now all the right-wing media is, saying this, that, and the other. But
when are they going? Yeah,
the mainstream.
When are they going to raid the White House?
The mainstream media and their shit and whatever and blah 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 blah. Their lefty kind of bullshittery is generously covering the Biden version of it, where they were attacking the Trump version of it. So all this bullshitty conversation that's going on and it's going to continue to go on, and the Jim Jordans of the world and the Nancy Pelosi's are going to sit here and defend and attack team appropriately. Doesn't happen.
I haven't heard from Nancy in a while.
I mean, she's the minority leader, so they're not going to hear as much from her anyway. But I'm just saying,
she's not.
She didn't take the minority leader seat. Oh, that's right, she didn't seek a seat at all. Yeah. She's still in the House, but whatever. That's the name that came in the left side of the aisle.
Sorry.
Give me a break, bro.
Sorry.
But this incidentally feeds into the politicalization of everything that has been happening over the last couple of years, just because elected officials are lax with their security requirements. And everybody does it, apparently. And only the people that deserve to get in trouble are getting in trouble, maybe. I don't know. Please, may I have a hazy while you're in there? If you don't mind, sir. Thank you, sir. And so that's the problem I have in this thing. It's like, I think it's kind of funny. Like, it's kind of comical in that, like, if I were to write a movie, that's how you do the throwback joke or whatever kind of thing. It's kind of funny in that sense, but it's just it's a, I don't know. You're supposed to be like, you know, top secret, high clearance people. You're supposed to understand the rules and how to deal with this information. You're not supposed to just be all willy-nilly with it, but everybody does it, apparently. And so I think realistically, you could probably go to any senator or high-level cabinet member's house, and they're going to have shit in their house that they're not supposed to. That seems to be a truism to me.
I don't think it's as rampant as you may think, but that's possible. I don't know.
I mean, it just seems like it to me. I mean, it's just, you know, you had Secretary of State with all her shit at home because it was easier when she was working from home or whatever the fucking reason she put it together was. You've got the current president, the prior president. I'm sure if you went into Bush's house, he's got some shit he's not supposed to have still. You go into his library, he's got shit that, like, because that was an interesting one of my podcasts talking. You go into the, he is from Texas, so he's been to W's presidential library or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's like artifacts in there. And it's like, it's just kind of weird. It's like, are they the president's or are they like who owns it? Like if the ambassador of whatever comes on an official visit, gives you, like, the ambassador from Japan comes and gives you this beautiful samurai sword or whatever as a gift. Is that property of the United States or is that property of President Biden?
I remember seeing something that talked about the legalities of that, as far as like gifts that are giving to you as your president. I can't remember.
And I know that's a cheesy, silly kind of like,
right.
These are little tactical gifts that aren't really that tactile, not tactical, tactile gifts
right.
that have no real significance in like world affairs. I mean, they might, like, I guess you could, if that sword was found on eBay or something like that, the Japanese government might be a little pissed. But.
Right. I don't know if there's any specific rules on it. I want to say I've read some. It was almost like expectations, because I think when they were talking about Trump and his library, they talked about something like the personal letters and correspondence he had with like other dignitaries and
right.
presidents and kings and stuff.
Well, isn't
like
it okay?
that.
So I don't know this. I'm thinking.
So like they expected that stuff to go into the presidential library so the people could see, like, oh, that's really interesting. You know, this letter that he was leading to the president and blah blah blah.
Like, is the presidential library property of the federal government, or is it property? Is it like?
Don't know.
I feel like it's an individual thing. Like, I feel like they start their own nonprofit. Like, I feel like it's George W. Bush's Presidential Library LLC, for lack of a better word. Probably not LLC, but whatever company.
There's probably like federal grants to go to it, but
I mean, I'm truly curious. I don't know the answer to that, because I know Mr. Bezos gave like couple $100 million to help fund Mr. Obama's presidential library in Chicago, which is weird. I don't know why you would do that as Jeff Bezos, but you do. Just less money to give to your ex-wife. Boom!
Boom!
Did you see, was it U.S. Virgin Islands is suing... Is it Virgin Islands? Yeah, is suing the Department of Corrections in the state of New York or whatever for letting... no, they're suing Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, and what's the guy's name?
Oh, for Epstein?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did see that.
Crazy story. I mean, I feel like there's a ton of this story that we still don't know. More UFO files have been dropping?
I didn't see
Nobody's
that.
talking about that.
Didn't see that.
Just more like open admissions. Oh, did you hear the budget stuff? That's a fun one.
Thursday, we're going to reach the budget ceiling.
I didn't know that part. I'm sure we will. We'll see how many people hold out and make it a thing.
I think that's what Janet Yellen was saying.
I want to see, like, I'm excited, even though I know it's like a false hope, that there are people advocating for the reduction of the Pentagon's budget.
That's good.
As part, and as Republicans, as part of their fiscal conservatism, they're not just going after Social Security and Medicare. They still are, but they also want to take some money back from the Pentagon. Like the Pentagon is not since 2015 when the House required an annual audit of all departments in the federal government. The Pentagon has failed their audit every year.
We were seeing something about
like
that.
to the tune of $1 trillion they can't account for over 5 years.
I've seen a couple stories on that.
Yeah, that's cool. We're cool with that.
But they also have black budgets that they don't have to disclose as well.
Well, if 20% of their budget is black budget, then we've got problems there too.
Right.
But hey, black budget, deep state, different terms, not the same thing, right?
Right.
They're not the same thing. Or they are the same thing. They might be. We don't know. They're black or deep or whatever. If you're deep enough in the ocean, it's black, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no light.
No light. So black, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so yeah, they're exactly the same
That's
thing.
deep. No. I don't know if they're the same thing or not, because I don't know what the fuck's going on.
You're conflating different things.
I mean, I am, because the Pentagon does not oversee the CIA. Well, I guess they do oversee the CIA, but not the FBI. Or Homeland Security.
I can't remember how.
Isn't Homeland Security supposed to be like the bridge between all? I don't understand the fucking thing. What is the difference between Homeland Security and FBI?
I think FBI is a part of Homeland Security. Because FBI is only...
I mean, everybody's under Homeland Security.
FBI is only the United States. FBI has no jurisdiction outside of the United States.
Right.
They are essentially our federal police.
Right, like TBI. Love that kid's laugh. Gets me every time. Anyway, yeah. Lost my train of thought because there's a giggle in the background. Sorry, everybody.
Ha, 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 ha.
Budget stuff. What were we talking about? I totally got fully distracted by a kid.
Bullshit.
Not bullshit. It's real shit. $1 trillion.
Black
Pentagon
budget, deep state.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that's... I find that... like, okay, the hopeful part is that there might be a trimming to the Pentagon's budget because there are some Republicans who are that fiscally conservative that they're actually go after the Department of Defense with some of their cuts, too. That would be cool.
There's been another number of stories that have come out in the past few years about just, like, missing munitions that they've found from, like, different armories.
I mean, I still think it's like a mind-boggling... It's like, you know, not to go down the Ukraine rabbit hole again. Although we haven't talked about it in like a month now. But I don't know what's going on. I guess it's winter. Everything stops in war in winter in that region of the world. But you know, it was that was the one from Rand Paul from Kentucky. He was like, I'm not saying no to signing off on sending more aid to Ukraine, but can we at least put us, was it Solicitor General, an auditor that basically says that if we send you $1 million worth of shit, or $1 million or $1 million worth of shit, there's some accounting for what happens to it and where it goes. That's all we're asking for. And that got to, like, I mean, he didn't vote for it, and it got passed pretty easily anyway.
Yeah,
like he just kind of got laughed out of the room when he asked for it. It's like, I don't feel like that's a weird ask. I mean, I feel like, you know, that would be the responsible thing to do because there were reports at least, and that's kind of fallen by the wayside. I haven't heard anything recently.
Right, but I'd say if probably wouldn't have to look too hard to find that happening within our own U.S. military.
Sure. Which is why they can't account for trillions of dollars of the shit over a couple of years.
Very possible.
I think that's a problem.
I
think it's a big fucking deal. That's
no one wants to admit they fucked up.
I mean, I guess the bonus is it's not really our money because it's debt that our kids will eventually have to pay off kind of deal. But I mean, it's our money. It's our tax dollars getting lost. And one person asked, "Hey, can we just keep an eye on this a little bit? Can we assign somebody to pay attention to this?" No. I think that's kind of, I mean, it's irresponsible at best. Be the nice way to put it. Or overly trusting of a foreign body that has a completely different set of interests than we do. Although we're co-opting their interest because we think it's helping with our interests. But, you know.
I don't know. I was trying to equate it to like a loan or whatever. But
I don't think we're getting it back. I don't think that was ever part of the deal.
I think not for all of it. I think for some of it, it is.
I mean, it's weird though. Like we're in massive debt. Is that normal? Like in other things, if you're in debt, do you loan somebody else money?
I'd say most countries in the world are technically in debt. Most people in the U.S. are technically in debt.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not
That's
uncommon.
True. That's a problem, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's when they did. I think there was I can't remember who put it out, but I guess someone that tracks more of like credit card debt. That credit card debt in the U.S. has been going up in the past couple of years.
It's a problem,
but inflation's gone down. I think it's down to like 6.5%.
Cool. My 3%, my annual 3% cost of living raise is only half of value instead of a third value.
We're like 8, pushing 9.
Yeah,
just like 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, not the worst thing to. I mean, it's an improvement. I got a weird argument with the guy today at one of my stops about, like, he was trying to say that, like, we got a weird argument about hospitals and shit like that, and like he thinks hospitals shouldn't be for profit, and I got into my capitalism bullshit, blah 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 blah. And I was like, I don't like. How do you incentivize otherwise? How do you get people to do otherwise? Profit is how we operate as human beings. Blah 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 blah. That was my stance on it. You can argue with me or not. That's not the point. But he's like, you don't make a profit. I was like, what? It's like, A, I'm not a business in the sense of when we were talking because I was doing my day job. But it's like, well, I mean, yeah, I make more money doing the job than I spend on doing the job. So yeah, I make a profit. And his real argument was that year over year, my profit is less than it was the year before because of inflation. But that doesn't mean I don't make a profit. It just means my profit goes down. Because if I make $100 a year and it costs me $20 to make that $100, I made $80 in profit. Now that $80 might buy less this year than it did last year, but I still made $80 in profit.
Yeah.
Now the value of my profit goes down year over year because of inflation and other issues in play. I agree with that, but it was just really weird. Like, because it was such like I don't know. Remember when Sean was on the show with us?
Yeah.
Like he goes into these little kind of little like, and I guess it's something that I guess I do too. I just do it from a different angle than most people that I've interacted with that do it. Is they go down this kind of like utopia rabbit hole, and they can't argue in the reality because their core philosophy isn't a thing that doesn't exist. If we could only get here, this would be great. Well, sure,
right,
but get me there at least, and then we can argue about it. But I can't be there with you because I don't understand what you're talking about. Yes, it would be great if hospitals were free, didn't cost anything to run. Sure,
yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, libertarianism.
Do what?
Libertarianism goes quite in hand with it as well. Sounds great. Well, let me know how that's going to work.
I mean, I think comparatively it would work better than this version of it, but I get it that it's a rabbit hole that is my rabbit hole. My philosophical rabbit hole that I fall into is abnormal. It's not something that people are comfortable with because they don't think about things the way that I do. I agree with that. Yes. Now I think there are steps to get to where I'm trying to get to, or where I think we should be, that are attainable steps. But that was the problem with the conversation I was having earlier. There's no steps in between. It's just it should be X.
Right.
And it's like, well, I can't.
There's an ideal, but how realistic
right,
is that?
Help me get there. If you can help me get there, if you can show me a path to get there, then we can talk about whether your ideal is ideal or not. But if you can't even get a pathway there,
right?
Because every time you get on me on libertarian shit, it's like there are steps we could take to get towards. Now, again, I've wavered on my dedication to true libertarianism or whatever over time, to the point where I refuse to call myself a libertarian anymore, mostly because the connotation is inaccurate to what I feel like the base philosophy is, but whatever. But there are steps that can go towards the things.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things, and to agree with this guy that I was talking to earlier, one of the biggest things that I think is problematic is the loss of money, the loss of value over time. How do we go about fixing that? Because the only not the only reason, but the biggest reason why the value of the dollar continues to drop is because we have no standard to hold it against. And now Nixon dropped us off the gold standard for a reason. Roosevelt, FDR? Yeah, FDR pulled this, or not pulled this, but defaulted on some loans for a reason. And there was it made sense at the time. But the long-term repercussions are what we're seeing now. When we've defaulted on loans in the past as a nation, when we've done these different monetary games that we've done as a nation, is one of the things that has brought us to where we are now in this significant inflation is normal thing. And I think that's a problem. And I don't
think significant inflation is a normal thing. I don't think anybody considers it normal.
I mean, I think
The
okay,
inflation that we're
AC
seeing right now, no one is saying that this is normal.
No, it's not. It's
normal when you're coming out of 2 years of fucked upness.
It is excessive.
It could have been a
inflation.
hell of a lot worse.
It is excessive inflation. It has been excessive inflation, and it's settled down. What's the average rate of inflation year over year? Not taking
Like 3 and 4.
right. I'm assuming that's where my 3% that my day job gives me
Yeah, probably
annually came from. That's like some sort of national Federal Labor Bureau statistic says.
General. Well, I mean, even inflation rate in itself goes off a wide swath of markets that goes to affect that.
Right.
Like
And they
apparently,
don't
right now, I
include-
didn't realize because I haven't bought eggs in a while, but apparently eggs
are super expensive.
have
right
gone
now.
really expensive.
Yeah, like $3.12. A dozen eggs that used to be $2.53 are now $4 or $5. Easy. Like them fancy cage-free, grain-fed chicken eggs.
Yeah, brown eggs.
About $7 a dozen. Which makes me wish I had some chickens in the backyard. Not really.
But not everything has been, drastically affected by inflation. But again, I think when they give that inflation rate, they're going off the kind of grand across all commodities.
And again, I don't understand it. Obviously, not an expert on it. And I made an ass of myself a couple weeks ago when we were arguing about it. I don't understand why inflation is necessary. Because it seems to me that it's just like, yeah, inflation. It's a thing. 3 or 4% average over time is pretty normal.
I think it's necessary. I think it's just... I don't know.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Like over time, things just kind of eventually start getting more expensive, depending on whether it's a factory that every 10 years they've got to remanufacture like all their machines or whatever. So they build that into their cost. So they kind of have like a small cost growth rate through the years that they kind of spread that out. Where the general public, they see that cost has kind of gone up.
I don't know. Because that doesn't... on a business standpoint, that doesn't make sense to me. If I am in a manufacturing business, I am...
But there's no guarantee in a business that you are constantly going to just be making more and more and more and more.
Well, I mean, that's another factor.
Year.
That's another given that I don't know that
that you're going to have ebbs and flows.
But I'm just saying
prices are going to fluctuate.
But the more and more and more and more that you went down there is another one of those givens. And the reason why every business model we have to outsell last year is because you have to. Because if you don't outsell last year, you're going backwards because of inflation. Right?
Yeah, I guess.
If inflation wasn't occurring, if their cost of goods was like, if the products you're buying were staying the same price and the number of customers you have were staying the same and the amount of sales you were getting year in and year out was staying the same and all that stuff was the same and you were making good money as the owner and you were paying your staff well and everybody was happy, you wouldn't need to outsell last year in order to stay in business. But since inflation is a constant, you have to outsell last year to at least at the pace of inflation or you're going backwards. And so again, the question is, why is inflation mandatory, for lack of a better word? It seems to me that it's a given. It's going to happen.
I don't know. What did they tell you in business school?
To me, my recollection of it is it's just you have to plan for inflation. It was never this is why inflation happens. Inflation happens. You have to make sure that you are growing, outpacing inflation. I don't recall. I'm sure we've talked about it.
Right.
I drank a lot. I did my senior project in statistics was on how much beer I drank every night.
Nice.
My professor loved it. But, and so that to me, I think this is the idea of inflation being a given is what rolls a bunch of other stuff down the hill. Because again, going back to your factory example, is that if you own a factory and you're producing a thing, whatever the thing is, yes, at some point you have to retool. Whether you retool to make a different thing or whether you just have to do maintenance and repairs. But you budget that in from the get-go. That is part of the cost of the thing you sell anyway, as it is. Even though you're not fixing the machine today, for every widget you come off the line, you set a nickel aside for maintenance and repair. You set 25 cents for labor, you set 5 cents for this. That's the very generic business model is you set that aside from the get-go. So that price should already be in the price that we're looking at now. And so to say that a company is raising their prices because they have to retool would be poor. That's just poor business management in the first place. Because another company making similar things should be able to then outcompete you in price because they planned for, and they might have been 2 cents more than you from the beginning.
I think it's just more simply just passing on the cost of running a business to the customer.
Absolutely,
I mean,
it is.
and
but why is that cost going up?
And finite materials, eventually that cost is always going to go up. If you're manufacturing gold shit, there's a finite amount of gold out there.
Now that one makes logical sense to me. But I mean, how many? I mean, I guess it may be in the energy sector. I could get behind that as far as the energy sector being a consistent across the board that has to that.
I mean, it could just
always
be
gets more
and more
expensive.
companies just kind of hedging their bets of not knowing how volatile the market's going to be, whether it's steel, lumber, plastics, whatever. You never know when that supplier is going to either go under or they're going to have to raise their costs.
Right.
So I don't know if it's a bunch of just like hedging. They're like, we need to go and start making some more money now.
I don't know.
Like there were a lot of companies that thought that they were going to go belly up during the pandemic, and then come to find out they were making money hand over fist.
I was one of them. I mean, we were. Like, I was scared to death when that shit hit because I didn't know if we were going to be able to stay open, period. And
Right.
how are we going to pay our bills? How are we going to keep our staff? How are we going to reopen when this thing ends? Like, I mean, yeah.
Right.
It was not a fun time for that sense. But we did well through it because nothing sells better in times of stress than chemical stress relievers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Well,
but again, I think this inflation conversation.
AC would say it's complicated.
Yeah, it is, and that's why I want to talk about it. I want to try to understand better. Like, because that to me is a core question that somebody super smart out there, almostagreement@gmail.com. Please email me, and we'll get on the show and we'll talk about it. And you can explain to me exactly why inflation is a requirement.
I don't know why you
And then
keep
what are the
calling
base
it a
costs?
requirement.
It's a given. What do you want to call it? It is a
An understood factor? I don't know. But I don't. I'm sorry. I'm taking issue with a requirement.
is okay. Inflation is a constant. How's that?
Okay, that's better than a requirement.
It's a variable constant. It's not the same constant year in and year out, but it's a constant. There will be some inflation every year.
Okay, I like that better.
We've only had negative inflation a handful of times in the history of the United States. And usually that goes along with some really shitty times. Because I think that's a factor. I think that's a curiosity that I'd like to be able to run that thread through and understand why the only times we have prices really dropping across the board is when the shit hits the fan and most people can't afford it. That's probably it's probably a chicken or the egg, because part of the reason the prices are dropping is because nobody can afford to buy the shit anymore.
Right.
Because half the people don't have
People
fucking
are like,
jobs.
I guess we got to lower it if we want to be able to sell it.
Right. Well, I mean, most of the public's out of work.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm the economics of the whole thing are fascinating and curious, and do you know Jack Ruby? Was that what we were talking about? Yeah, Jack Ruby was not part of
JFK.
Yeah, but he was. There's some more JFK stuff coming out. That's a weird one. Have you heard the grand story on that?
No, I saw that it came back up for Biden to
He's breaking the law.
reauthorize.
He is breaking the law. It's not a
Because they released some records,
Right, it was like
but
in
they extended the secrecy or whatever. Because I guess every 10 or 15 years or whatever, it has to get reauthorized.
No, there's a law. The House passed a law back in like the 90s or something that says that they had to get the totality of whatever out by X date. And it was like 2000. It might have been 16 or 17, so it was early in the Trump administration. And for whatever reason, Trump did everything he could to not give it out. Even though Trump's the guy that's like, what's the UFO deal? Tell me about the UFOs. And he was one. Trump was very active in getting the UFO shit out. But
I remember that.
JFK stuff. And so, but it was supposed to be law that like all of it had to be out. And so like they kept putting the same thing out, but a little less redacted. Oh, like, you know, that like another drop date was supposed to come and they do the same set of 2,000 documents, but with like one more sentence showing.
Yeah.
Over the entirety of the whatever. And so there's people that have been studying this, like studying the JFK incident and all this stuff for fucking decades, who've been waiting on this now for like 6 years since it was supposed to be officially released. And for whatever reason, which, the conspiracy, not even the conspiracy theorist, the logical conclusion is the FBI and the CIA don't want it out because they've been told by law they're supposed to give it out. And every time that it comes up, they figure out a way to not give it out. I don't know why you wouldn't give it out if it's going to clear your name. You're not giving it out because you're obligated to keep it secret anymore, because you're actually obligated to give it out. What is your excuse for not giving it away when you're told to?
I don't know.
I'm just saying it's interesting, and I'm curious how it all plays out because
I thought I read some article on it, but I didn't think there was a requirement of everything to be released. I
don't buy the lone gunman theory. I mean, I think Oswald probably shot him, but I think there's a lot more going on to it than just some random American communist decided to shoot the president.
Back and to the left.
Right. I mean, yeah, that, and he goes, who was Jack Ruby or whatever, some random mob guy goes and kills the guy that killed the president. Like, was there ever any explanation on why he wanted to kill Oswald?
Not to my knowledge.
Like this mob guy was such a patriot. Although I guess the Kennedys were kind of mixed up with the mob too, weren't they?
I think so.
So maybe it was you killed my guy.
Could have been.
That was Italian racist. I apologize. I don't know. I'm just saying, if it seems kind of random that you would assassinate an assassinator and not have something behind it, and then died in prison very shortly after.
I mean, he could have done it for his own personal reasons, just having to have mob ties.
Yeah, and if it was for namesake, he's done a good job.
Maybe Italian fell in love with the Irish president. It's like, he was the first Irish guy I really liked.
He's Catholic. Mama.
He was a good guy.
I just think with the amount of shit on it, I feel like there should be there should be some logical line on why this guy decided to kill Oswald.
I don't know.
But yeah, apparently he, what was the guy's name? I forgot it. You've heard of the MK Ultra thing, right?
Yeah.
The same guy that was handling, what's his name? Manson?
Timothy. Oh.
The same guy that was the CIA handler that was handling Manson went in and visited Jack Ruby. It's a whole deep thing.
Manson was a CIA operative as well.
Fuck.
I haven't heard this.
Yeah. This one. Charles Manson, the CIA. Chaos is the name of the book. Charles Manson, the CIA and the Secret History of the 60s by Tom O'Neill. It's interesting. Apparently, this guy, Tom O'Neill, was writing for Rolling Stone. Supposed to write an article on Manson. Started doing his thing. 20 years later, he comes out with this book because every time he started doing his research, he got deeper and deeper and deeper into it. That, there's on record, he was a San Francisco police chief who an interviewer or a reporter asked him, it's like, why is that Manson guy getting released? He's like, it's above my pay grade. One of many things or whatever. That's always the quote that always jumped out at me. It's like the chief of police lets Manson back out after one of his many arrests. After it was a parole violation that he got picked up for. Anyway, doesn't matter. Conspiracy theory. I guess I'm going down one of those again, so I'll just shut up.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, the guy that was allegedly, maybe that's a better way I should put it. The guy who allegedly was Manson's handler visited Jack Ruby the day after he got arrested, and then Ruby dies 6 months later of some cancer that nobody knew he had when he first went in.
Yeah, kind of sounds like pulling at strings, but
it might be.
It's possible.
I don't know. I haven't taken the deep dive myself, partially because I feel like I'm pulling at strings, but it's fun to jump on board.
Yeah,
even though I don't know shit about shit.
It sounds fascinating.
It does sound fascinating. I don't buy that there's not more shit going on than we know about. But I'm down to ponder.
I mean, it's tantalizing. I mean, people always want to know something they're not really supposed to know, or kind of want to peek behind the curtain. So there's always that desire to kind of know the unknown, or think that you know something that someone else is trying to hide.
Right. I mean, I think there's that, but I think I think it goes into. I think it goes into the greater societal issue, one of the greater societal issues we're currently having. the lack of faith in institutions, the lack of, like, I don't trust the government, whatever, that kind of thing, And maybe it's a fair argument to say that, the government's so massive and there's so many people that, yeah, some people do bad shit, and to say the whole thing's bad because a couple of people do something bad isn't necessarily a fair assessment. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's hard to stand and observe, and for me at least, it's hard to sit here and observe and see, just like our documents issue that we were talking about earlier with the presidents having, and heads of state and whatever that, taking documents home they're not supposed to take home, innocent corruption, whatever you want to call it. But, these things happen and seem to happen regularly. And how many times are we going to get told it's not that big a deal and continue to believe it's not that big a deal? Now, again, this document one I think's whatever, but that's on a particular to me. There is shit that we have done as a nation to other nations that make enemies out of other nations that we don't know about when they're happening. There's, what was the thing that theoretically got Kennedy killed? The Bay of Pigs, right? Wasn't the Bay of Pigs a plan hatched by the chiefs of staff to do a false flag invasion by the to have the Cubans shoot down a passenger airliner of Americans or whatever so that we can invade Cuba? Am I mixing them up? Maybe the Bay of Pigs isn't the right title of that.
I think the Bay of Pigs was when we tried to invade Cuba.
Okay.
I don't know if it had anything to do with, I don't know, the other airplane story you're talking
I'm
about.
probably conflating stories because it's Cuba and communism and crazy shit. But I mean, I don't know. To me, there is documented history of some fucked up shit going on from time to time here and there. Is it universal all the time? Probably not. Probably more of the things that I think are fucked up about the government that happen is probably more out of stupidity than it is out of some cabal of people trying to put something together to be crazy and whatever. But I mean, hell, you go into the Stock Act and all the trading and the Paul Pelosi making a gajillion dollars over time on information that he shouldn't have, or maybe he didn't have. He just got that lucky. All the time he beats the best financial guys in the world by 20% year in and year out. It's like you see all that, and it's to me, I guess at least, it's hard to not be like, okay, well, there's at least some powerful actors here that are doing some shady shit. How much should I trust the totality of the institution that goes along with those people? Where do I draw the line? And I think for some people it's further, and some people it's closer, and I guess I'm one that's a little bit on the closer side. Like I don't see the point to start, I guess. It's like we built a thing that's too corruptible, and I don't know how to unbuild it.
You want to tear apart the system?
I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know how to fix it. I think we agree, you and I at least, that there are some significant problems at play.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't specifically agree on all of what are and aren't the problems. But it doesn't seem to me that the system is capable, or not capable, that's not the right word. It seems to me that the system as it sits doesn't have the right incentives in place to correct itself. Like, it doesn't seem like the incentives are at play for them to do better, to them to bridge that gap, to fill in those gray areas that get some of us uncomfortable. Those gray areas are the important places where they play and pit us against each other, among other things, so that I'm busy bitching about, and again, I mean, I don't know, like, that's the question. Maybe that's a more precise example to talk about. Like, do we really think that the majority of Tennesseans have issues with trans kids? Do we really think it's like a actual, like, if we went out and walked and knocked on doors, I'm sure a lot of people are like, it's fucked up, it's against God's will. It's like, yeah, but do you feel like you have the right to tell somebody they can't live that way? Do you feel like that's your right as a human being to do that? I would think that most people, when they're actually addressed with it that way, would probably not be as ardent. They'd be like, yeah, it's fucking bullshit, it's crazy, it's fucking weird, it's Satanism or some bullshit like that. But if they're pressed on it, I would say that most people would be like, but yeah, who am I to say no?
Just don't tell them to do a cabaret show in my
keep
backyard.
That shit up, right. Keep that shit away from me.
Not my coal sack.
Right. And so it's like, and I think that's true. I mean, I think you agree. I think if, for the most part, I think most people probably don't fucking care.
Right.
There's probably a good set of people who really do care in the negative way, and there's probably a good set of people who really do care in the quote positive way, or the inverse of the negative way, whatever that is, on this particular issue. And so why is the first bill in the new session of the Tennessee House that one?
First one filed? I don't know.
I'm just saying, it seems to me that at least according to the Republicans in the state of Tennessee, that is the number one issue that we need to get done now.
I don't think that.
You don't think that they think that?
No.
Or then what do you think they're doing?
I think it just happened with the way it fell and being filed.
I think it's okay. Fuck, I am a conspiracy theorist, I guess. I think that there's either a political play in the sense that this gets our fucking redneck ass riled base up that loves us for hating on fags and whatever, and that's how we're going to get elected again.
How do you think the general populace are going to interpret it being like the number one bill? Like, that's got to be the most important thing that my legislator wants to do for me.
We would be whatever. It's the top 10 bills. Who cares? It's one of the first filed. It's been,
like you said,
we've been talking about this since last summer.
They've been over how long? And they have 200 bills already.
Right, but this one, among others, has been going on since last summer.
Gotcha.
I'm not talking about
even more reason why it got filed first, because it had already been going on. It was ready to go as soon as the window opened to file for the new year.
Okay, so I mean, I know you're not a big Facebook person, but I mean, I follow Zachary on Facebook, or Lafferty. Zachary. I always get them confused. I follow Zachary on Facebook, see his videos and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 10 posts he's fucking put up is either happy birthday somebody, congratulations on getting sworn in or getting appointed to said committee, and we're going to take care of these child abusing trans people and these weird ass people that wear the wrong clothes. That's all he talks about. Why? Because he is so appalled by that as an individual, or because there's a political thing at play for him here?
Both.
I think it's the latter. I think it's more politics than it is him personally. I think he knows that this is something that gets base out, that gets votes out, that does something. Or, and this is the more conspiratorial one, it gets us talking about fucking trans issues instead of talking about budgetary issues or talking about infrastructure issues that are real fucking problems. And so it's either a play for a distraction or a play for an election. It's the only thing that makes sense to me, because it's not that big a fucking deal.
It's probably a little bit of both.
I mean, but that's my point, though, is it's not that big a deal, but yet here we are. And so going back to this, the start of my ranting here is that it's like I'm supposed to trust the institution that has this guy playing fucking games on social media to get people all bent out of shape and either distracted or reelected.
Well, the quote-unquote system didn't put that guy into place. It was constituents that went out to vote or decided not to go vote.
And we've talked about how ridiculous the primary process and all that other stuff is, and then that is part of the system at large. This system is built to do this because this is what it's doing.
All right.
Am I wrong?
I just don't understand the system was the one that put him there.
Yes, I don't even remember saying the system in that rant until you said it, but
you were saying the system was what put him in place.
Right. The system of how we elect people put him there so that he can play games with distractions and or getting reelected games. Now, do either one of those sound like our best interest as constituents things? How do we have? Why isn't the where is the problem in the system that his actual goal isn't to serve us as people anymore, and it's to play games?
I'm assuming his advisor has probably looked at the most vocal people and said that this is what's bothering him the most, so this is what's going to keep people voting for him. It's what a lot of companies do. I'm assuming political operatives do the same damn thing. Is they're looking at what's going to get the most interactions and
you're right.
Keep their name. So they're going to look and see what stories have been in the news.
Sure. So then the
so whether or not he truly believes that, or if it is just,
I mean, honestly, whether he truly believes it or not doesn't really matter to the point I'm trying to get to. Whether he truly believes it or not doesn't matter. Is the idea that, I guess it does a little bit, but the idea that, at least in our perception, it seems pretty clear that this is not, maybe a better way to put it, this is not something of actual true substantive value for us as constituents. And I think we would agree, and I think in a survey, probably statewide, would agree that on a substantive level of things that are actually important to our day-to-day lives, this is not it. And you're right. His PR team and whomever it is playing the games and seeing what gets people excited and reactive. Because, I mean, again, they're winning because here we are talking about it. But how to get it to where we are talking about the actual substantive things instead of being distracted by said things is not in the best interest of him or the system, because he's part of the team that builds the system. If we're going to use system as the word. Which goes back to why I've lost faith and or trust in said system. Now, am I advocating to blow it up and start over? No. I don't know what to do. That's part of my problem. I don't have a solution. I have direction to push on issues that I think would be the right way to start pushing the general consciousness towards, or whatever you want to call it. But I don't have a solution in the back of my hand and like in my back pocket to just put up. I think more libertarianist things would be a good way to start. Like, I think this city of Knoxville thing about the leash law is fucking weird. I just think it's weird that you can't really own a dog in the city of Knoxville anymore unless you have a lot of money to build the fence or a lot of time on your hands to actually stand outside with your dog. Like, your dog's not allowed to go outside without you. Actually, that's not true. The one that, I'm sorry, I take that back. I apologize. There was two on the table. You can let your dog outside on a leash with a runner and shade and water without you standing out there watching them. But if you put a stake in the ground with a string on it and your neighbor complains, you can come get a fine. I don't know. I still don't know what the penalties are.
Okay, but realistically, how often do you think that's actually going to be enforced?
Then why are we doing it if it's not important enough to enforce? I don't know.
Maybe
I don't know how often it'd be enforced.
That the two people that kept bitching about their neighbor's dog barking in their yard, and they're like, "All right, Sally, like we'll make a bill that says you can't do that anymore."
I mean, I don't know. So it doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter, but it makes somebody happy that you talked about it in public. That's a win.
That's just a guess. I don't know.
I mean, it costs money to do that, to go through the whole process. There are staffers that have to deal with the paperwork of that. I mean, some guy, the custodian that works for the city county building, had to be there until like 10 o'clock before they finished that meeting.
So
he can start doing his job.
But there's a lot of laws on the books that are laxly enforced, like littering. We've had littering on the books for years, but don't really do shit about that.
I agree. That one sucks. They should do better. Actually, we should be better people that we shouldn't be required to be threatened. I've seen
some of the General Assembly, like they were touting that like we were one of the better states for like trash removal and roadside pickup and littering and blah blah blah.
What's the metric?
That's what I'm wondering.
We pick up more trash because that means more trash gets thrown out, or
so I wasn't sure about it. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I mean, depending on what the metric is, it could be a legit statement.
I mean, it's kind of something that when they talk about, we have some like the best roads in the U.S., and I'm like, our roads are pretty fucked up. Like, I mean, how bad is everything else?
It's probably not great. I mean, I've seen some shit.
Yeah, everybody's just trying to be like the best of the worst.
I mean, that is the American way, buddy. That's what we strive for.
No, we're number one. What are you talking about?
I mean, I don't know.
We're number one.
We are number one at obesity. Which one? I mean, what are we number one at?
Incarceration rates?
We're number one at military spending. Yep, at least male incarceration rates. I don't know about total population.
Yeah, pretty sure we're number one percentage of population.
I think actually, I take that back. I'm pretty sure we are number one in the world in female inmates, period.
Really?
And as a percentage of our population. Like all metrics that you could do for females, we have the most of in prison.
Yeah, that's to be expected if we have one of the highest incarceration rates and we're 50-50.
Got more ladies.
Average men to women. Oh, yeah, actually, it is like 51-49 or whatever.
It's more ladies, but there's less ladies in jail as a percentage of the population.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. We're the freest? No, I don't know. I don't know if that might be the truest one that's maybe on there, and that's not very. I don't think we're very high on the freedom scale either. So.
No, don't think so.
I don't know. Who's a freer country? I mean, you'd have to define freedom too. But
right.
I mean, I'm curious. I don't know because I don't think so. I don't think a government that spies on its own populace and the idea of domestic terror being different, whatever, that kind of shit is a very free state. But, you know, I'd be curious, though. What's a freer country? I want to know. I really want to know this answer. It's the same. I'm excited about it. I want to know the model that I want to look at.
I can't think of one off the top of my head. So I kind of lean back towards, in fact, the most, I guess, I don't know if it's just been EU or particular countries that have gone against like Google and Facebook and some of these major tech companies and have had more privacy
stuff. I'll get on board with that.
Where they're like, no.
It's the EU at large. Yeah, the EU at large is like, you know, you don't...
So, I mean, in that aspect, they are wanting their population to be freer. They're like, no, you cannot.
Okay, so that goes into the definition of freer, because it's freer from what? Freer from business interests is what this is, yes. The EU in this sense is actively freer on...
I think it's more to do with like data collection, basically.
Right, but freer on your individual privacy versus big tech being corporate entities.
Okay. Well, the first things you said was spying, so I thought that might pull it a little bit.
I meant spying
your
by
heartstrings.
I meant spying by the government, not. But anyway, either way, you're right. I get what you're saying. I follow your line of your train of thought on that. Now, I guess, is England still part of the EU, but not?
No. Well, I think they're still working that out.
I'm so confused on the Brexit thing.
I think they're still working it out.
Because they don't use the euro.
I think they basically said, yeah. I don't think they've gone back to the pound.
I think they have. Either way, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm. It's a weird world. I mean, I don't know. And again, I think that might be one of the core disagreements that is implied in a lot of the arguments that we have on here. Is my definition of freedom and yours? Because I don't know that we have the same definition of freedom. Because I think one of the things that's funny to me, and especially because I've carried the libertarian banner, is the libertarian definition of freedom is you can do whatever the fuck you want. It's like, that's not my definition of freedom, whether it's the Libertarian Party's definition, which I know it's not theirs either. But
that's what's alluded to in what I'd read on their actual party website.
Right. I'm not going to, I don't speak for the party. And as prior mentioned on the show,
and that's what that's what I reference when I reference libertarianism, is what the party is putting out as their platform.
Okay. The general philosophy is what I'm more enamored with than the politics of what it is to be a party in the United States. I guess is part of the problem to me. Is because Republicans don't follow their philosophy, Democrats don't follow their philosophy, Libertarians don't really follow their philosophy very well either, because there's politics in the game, and the balance of getting people to pick you and vote for you and do this kind of shit doesn't bode well against philosophical bases. Generally. Because, you know, I don't know, last Republican that was the president of the United States and the next Republican that's going to be the nominee for the president of the United States by the Republicans is definitely nothing close to a fucking Republican, historically. But the definition has changed to him and only him, and whatever he says is Republicanism.
Yeah.
In the new world that we live in today. You all right, Grandpa? Old man Needs over here turns 40 and he's fucking all grumpy and shit. Anything new on the housing front? You ever get that application back?
Nope. Meant to call him today. It was a crazy day.
Oh, so that grant that I was talking about earlier, the $150,000 or whatever the city has agreed to pay to hire a company to write a grant.
Right.
It's for a pedestrian bridge to cross the Tennessee River at Thompson Bowling and go to where Knoxville Glove used to be on the south side. It is legitimately... So this is the world we live in, and I don't understand it. Like, I really don't... This is where I don't understand. I need an engineer in my life to come explain to me how this shit works. Is a bridge for people to walk across of is going to cost as much as this baseball stadium project.
That's weird.
Like that was like when they were talking about it on the
concrete
Compass
that expensive?
when they were talking about it on the Compass Show earlier today. Like I understand some safety aspects, and it's a bridge, it's over water, and it's a big fucking river. It's no joke, little creek or nothing.
Right.
But they were talking about it on the Compass Show earlier today, you know, and like apparently this is something back in when it was the 9 counties One Vision plan, which was in the 80s, not the 5 county, the 9 county. This is something that was brought up back then, and back then it was estimated at $30 million to build said pedestrian bridge. Wow. And there is no current design per se to have an estimate to build, but they're ballparking it in the 70 to 80 million, which means by the time they actually sign off and get it done, it'll be 100.
How far is Thompson Bowling from Gay Street or the
Henley Street?
The Henley Street Bridge.
It's not that far, except for the 120 feet of elevation.
Yeah.
It's you have to walk 300 yards and up.
Yeah. Yeah, the hill next to the city county building is no joke.
Yeah, no, it's not. But I mean, it goes down to like fucking. I mean, but here's the reality at play here. Is like we were like, a couple weeks ago. There was a developer that was talking about doing the whole Marriott and turning it into like efficiency 1-bedroom apartments.
Yeah,
probably targeted at students. They just built those 2 giant ass apartment complexes on the other side of the river in the old Baptist plot, targeted for students.
Yeah.
There's a guy that's already doing development right there where Knoxville Glove is on the south side or whatever. That's going to be a multi-use whatever, first floor, commercial, 6 stories of residential.
I haven't heard much about the Kearns thing.
The Kearns Bakery is still in the works. They're not done with it. They've got a plan. They've already got tenants already lined up. A few tenants already lined up.
I thought they already had like the food court open there.
No, but the apartment complex. There's a big apartment complex that was part of the project, and that's open.
Okay. I thought the food court already was.
No, the bakery itself is still under construction.
Is there some other like weird food court thing that's open now?
There's that Marble Hall or whatever downtown.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
That's a shit show. That has been
really?
Weirdest little shit show of stuff. Like tenants getting kicked out, tenants leaving early, doing all sorts of weird shit. There's a vegan soul food place going in now, which doesn't make sense to me. Like, think about what I just said.
Right.
Vegan soul food.
Yeah.
Like, greens, okay. But, like, soul food to me is like ribs. Like bacon fat stuff cooked in bacon fat.
I mean, that's
soul food to me.
Somebody thinks there's a market there. I mean, there's vegan versions of all sorts of meat.
I agree. I'm just saying it's a weird concept. But yeah, that Marble Hall thing downtown has been a shit show. It's been like it's been underperforming by all metrics.
Right.
And apparently it's the fucking landlord's fucking problem. Is what it reads to me like. Is that it's as far as I understand it, it's similar to the mall. It's a percentage of revenue.
Oh, so the food courts and the malls work too?
Yeah, that's how the mall works, period.
Uh-huh.
If you go to the mall, every place in the mall pays a percentage of their sales.
Oh, shit.
Right, which is cool when you're on the low end.
I thought you just paid for your space.
No. It's not bad. It's a good place to get started in, but as time progresses, you don't make anything. It's hard to stay in a place like that. Because inflation and other things, costs go up and stuff like that. But when you're already giving half your margin away,
yeah.
Because like for us, for example, like the big shift for us is when we got to a point where our fixed costs become less than half. Because for a long time, your fixed costs are a big chunk of labor and rent are huge numbers. But when those start getting into the smaller percentage of the total, that's when you actually start making money as a business.
Right.
But when rent grows with your sales, you never start making that money. Anyway, so as of right now, I don't know how many total units, but as of right now, either under construction or planned to be constructed in the near future, there is like, I want to say 5,000 units targeted at UT students being added to the Knoxville real estate market. That new one that's going on the strip, it's going to be like 2 10-stories, 2 8-story buildings, like 4 entire blocks, a 10-story parking garage is part of the whole thing. I think that one's like 1,200 units by itself. The one that's may go into the Marriott, there's one right next to the Marriott that's already been signed off on. It's only going to be like 80 units. But then there's one that's already been signed off on the south side and 2 more that are in conversation on the south side, directed at students. There's a huge number of housing coming in that's supposedly directed at students already in the works, which is why this pedestrian bridge makes sense. Because from that spot, for sure, like from the Knoxville Glove over there, coming across, right, ride your little e-bike, rent a scooter, ride the scooter over, go to class. I mean, it seems reasonable. But the idea that it's $80 million to build that fucking bridge is crazy.
Yeah.
But again, to me, I mean,
crazy lights and everything else on it.
I'm sure they will. Well, I mean, and there's an obligation to get it high enough for boats because we still have fucking barges that come through there and shit like that. So
right, but you can't go up that high.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that train bridge still operational? Because apparently Chattanooga did a pedestrian bridge that was a car bridge that was starting to fall apart. So instead of,
I think I've been on that.
Yeah, so instead of taking it down, they retrofitted it, cleaned it up, turned it into a walking thing because it.
We won't have to reinforce it as much.
Right.
If we don't
it doesn't have to be as strong.
Cars,
it's just people walking on it.
Yeah, just people going across it. Like, we can do that.
Damn semi trucks.
We got enough duct tape for that. Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm not opposed to this fucking pedestrian bridge thing. Like, I don't really fucking care per se. I want the South Side to become part of Knoxville because to me, historically, it is South Knoxville. It's not Knoxville. It's South Knoxville. It's a different place to me. It's been a different place for my entire life.
Don't see the demand for it. Of like directly right across the bridge. I don't see a lot of.
If you take what's there already, plus these other buildings that are coming in, if it's all students, and apparently this is another part that I didn't really understand. I still don't quite understand, but apparently the university has a wish print, which is their current footprint, plus lines that they draw on the city on where that they would like to be.
Right.
And if they decide to buy a parcel to add to the university, it has to be in that wish print before they can make an offer. And so this wish print is a whole big circle around what the university already is.
Right.
And so apparently there is discussion because it's already in the wish print that on the south side of the river that the university is already talking about maybe putting some administrative or cultural buildings and stuff like that in on the other side of the river as well. So theoretically, this bridge would be the beginnings of UT crossing the river, like literally crossing the river and being part of campus on the south side. Not just campus housing, but actually a University of Tennessee building other than the hospital on the south side. Because my understanding of their wish print or whatever is it's the...
I mean, the Body Farm's on the south side.
Right. My understanding of it is from Henley Street.
There's a few buildings.
From the Henley Street Bridge to the hospital and probably 100 yards off the river is already in the wish print. So if UT wants to buy land on the south side of the river, they can. And so UT can be over there all the way. I mean, at least currently it's all ag campus and medical school stuff if it's on the other side of the river. Currently. But this could add actual buildings, whatever. So again, I don't really care about the bridge per se. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not saying we shouldn't build it. I do have a little bit of issues if the county kicks in money, or the city for that matter. I don't necessarily see that as a community good, personally. I don't see the growth of the University of Tennessee as a community good.
I just don't see the need for it. I mean, yeah, there's those new apartments over there, but I don't see a need throughout the year for the ability for that many people to walk across. Because if you're walking, like I said, like there's...
I follow what you're saying, I do.
Right there where we're talking about, where they're talking about building the bridge, there is nothing there for most people to go see. Like, it's kind of run down, and I would feel sketchy walking around in that area.
There's not going to be nothing there for very long, is the point. 2 of them are already approved and will be breaking ground this year or next year.
Yeah.
And then there's more people that are looking at the big. One of the big probably containment factors for that section.
You just bring disc exchange back.
That one it said, what's it, a wee something now? The one of the big restricting factors down there is that train bridge, though. Not the one that crosses the river, but the 1.5 lane road where you're driving underneath the train tracks, and it's a very narrow, low pass. There's two of them.
Drive across it?
They're under. You go under the train tracks.
You can drive across the river under...
No, you when you're coming off of Henley Street going parallel to the river to get down to Knoxville Glove and that kind of stuff, there's a narrow train bridge or there's a narrow underpass under the train bridge. There's two of them that are driving parallel to the river going between Henley and Alcoa.
Yeah.
There's two. But if you're trying to get to Henley Street, Chapman Highway at that point, if you're trying to get to there from that neighborhood, you're going under one of those two train bridges that are not very big, which is a traffic issue, which will have to be addressed at some point too.
Yeah. But
again, to me, the point of that whole mess is, I don't care if the bridge goes or not. As a county citizen, I will be upset if we contribute anything to that. I don't feel the need for the Knox County or the city of Knoxville to be contributing to the University of Tennessee anymore. It's not an economic value like it was. It is not the only unifying factor of what we are as a city anymore. Personally, I think it's time to move on and be like, hey, you guys want to do that? We'll help with the paperwork. We'll change some zoning to make sure it's available for you. We'll do whatever we can to make it help. But you're not getting a dime out of city taxpayers. Oh, all right, last thing. We'll close on this, unless you have a Florida man.
No.
All right, last thing we'll close on this. Mayor Jacobs is sounding off on the city of Knoxville, saying you guys ought not suspend University R-Mark's license to serve alcohol at the Neyland Stadium.
Interesting. I don't think it's right for him to step into that.
I mean, he is notoriously for stepping into shit that he shouldn't. And for me personally, especially this is another reason why I don't carry the mantle of libertarian anymore, because he does. Go fuck yourself. I know plenty of people that I've either worked with, are friends with in the industry who have lost their license for longer periods of time.
Right.
And that their bottom line, their personal and their employee livelihood depended on their liquor license or their beer permit or the combination of the two. Right. And they lost it for periods of time that had to struggle to figure out how to survive a stretch of time without it. That, oh, well, it's UT, so it's not that big a deal. We're going to let it slide. We don't need to worry about them. Go fuck yourself. That's some bullshit. They need to be held to the same standard as the fucking rest of us. I don't like it, but it actually kind of pisses me off. Like, I don't like. And again, I mean, you're a libertarian / Republican mayor of the county of Knoxville. You're supposed to be the pro law and order guy, right? Shouldn't that be one of your things? You put a big post together for Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Well, follow the fucking law.
Yeah.
Hold them to the same standard as the fucking rest of us. That's fucking bullshit. Pisses me off.
I agree.
On the stupid leash law thing, apparently Knox County's got one coming too. So,
good.
So county residents, be aware that the Knox County Commission will be deciding on whether you're allowed to put your dog on a tether or not in your own backyard. So that's happening. Nothing else? You got nothing else? Go on.
Got nothing else.
Come on, man. I'm having fun.
I ain't go potty.
Then go potty. We can keep going.
That's all right.
All right.
I ain't got much else.
I can't much else either. I feel like I'm missing something that I really did want to talk about because that's
I'm running
normal
out of
for me.
steam.
Oh, fucking old man. You're not even as old as me.
I know. I can't catch up on you. You got to die for me to catch up.
Yeah, even then I'll have been born before you. It doesn't really matter. There's no way to do it. You realize Ross is like 4 years older than us?
Well, no, I would still age faster, or I would still age out after you die.
You would get to an age. You would get to an age that I didn't. Yes.
Yes. But archaeologically, your remains would still be older than myself.
Right, but we have to get past it.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a. You figured out a way to extend it. I'm curious about that. Like, what do you think? How do you think we'll be looked back on in an archaeological sense? Because I love that kind of shit. We watch that shit all the time. Where it's like fucking like we were watching one that's like a Chinese dig. They're digging under like the fucking Forbidden City kind of shit.
Yeah.
Shit that's been there forever. And I think to myself all the time, it's like, man, at some point, they're going to bury, this house is going to get buried by something. And something of mine is going to be left in here. Or I'm going to get buried in a hole in the ground or whatever the fuck it is. And then 3,000 years from now, we're going to somehow have forgotten all this. Whether it's nuclear fallout, whatever the fuck it is that destroys the world, which will happen eventually. And a new civilization will rise, and then some dorks will start getting interested in who was before us, and they'll start digging holes in the ground and they'll find stuff. It's like, what the fuck are they going to find and go, who were these people?
Yeah. Why'd they do that?
Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. They put suns from the sky in the front of their cars so they could drive places? That's a throwback to last episode. Do you remember talking about the fusion reactors?
Yeah.
Is there like little suns?
No.
We're going to have little suns in our basement and little suns in our cars. Nothing could go wrong. Anyway, that's how we do. We throw back to previous episodes, bitches. Sam Milano with his big bad bladder and me with my big bad mouth are going to call it a night. We appreciate everybody for listening. We're Almost in Agreement, almostinagreement@gmail.com, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostinagreement.com while you're there. Check out whatever's there. But look out for a Voter Guide 23 coming up for you city election voters. They're doing shit. They're making functional day-to-day changes that you could get fined or whatever the fucking word is for putting your dog on a leash and not watching them or whatever the fuck it is. That's what these people do, and we don't pay attention. Nobody does. Anyway, Almost in Agreement, favorite podcast provider, give us a like or follow there. Tell your friends about us. Do whatever you can to help grow the show, because we're going to keep doing the show. Keep checking out the Compass Points podcast. They do way better than I do. Go to CompassKnox.com. Just pay the money. Get the real story, the full story, and we'll go from there. So anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.